The Los Angeles Lakers walked into Detroit riding one of the hottest streaks in the entire NBA. 9 wins in a row, 12 wins out of their last 13 games. Third place in the Western Conference, playing some of the best basketball they had played all season long. Everything was clicking. Everything was going their way. And then the Detroit Pistons, without their best player, without Cade Cunningham, walked into their own building, played their style of basketball, and shut the whole thing down. The Lakers' 9-game winning streak is over, and the way it ended has people talking, especially after James Worthy went on air and did not hold back one single word about what he saw from this Lakers team when it mattered most. This game was not just a regular loss. It was a game the Lakers had every reason to win. Detroit was missing Cade Cunningham, their superstar, their engine, the reason they became the #1 team in the entire Eastern Conference. The Lakers had Luka Dončić, who has been playing out of his mind for weeks. They had LeBron James, a guy with decades of experience closing out road games. They had Austin Reaves, who has quietly become one of the most reliable players on this roster. And yet, with all of that, with everything they had going for them, the Lakers walked out of Detroit with a loss. And James Worthy had something to say about it. Let's start from the beginning, because this story did not start in the fourth quarter. It started in the first half, where the Lakers were playing some really poor basketball, despite somehow staying close early on. The Lakers were shooting just 1 for 13 from behind the three-point line at certain points in that game. Think about that. 1 for 13. That is not just a cold stretch. That is a complete freeze. And yet, somehow, they still had a short lead early on, which tells you that Detroit was not exactly lighting the world on fire in those early moments either. But then the second quarter happened, and that is where things really went wrong for the Lakers. The Detroit Pistons outscored the Lakers 42-25 in that second quarter. Let that number sit for a second. 42-25. That is not a small run. That is a complete and total beating in a single quarter. By the time halftime rolled around, the Lakers were down 13 points, down 13 on the road, against a team without their best player, while carrying a 9-game winning streak into the game. That is not the kind of hole you want to dig yourself into, especially on the road, where every possession matters even more. James Worthy, who has seen more Lakers basketball than almost anyone alive, pointed to that second quarter as the turning point. He said the second quarter was totally Detroit's quarter, and that it gave the Pistons the confidence they needed going into the second half. When a team like Detroit, already playing with something to prove because they are missing their superstar, gets a quarter like that, they do not let that feeling go. They carry it. And that is exactly what the Pistons did. They carried that second quarter energy all the way to the final buzzer. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The Lakers actually came back in a very big way in the third quarter. They clawed their way back into the game. They cut into that 13-point deficit and made it a real contest again going into the fourth quarter. That tells you this Lakers team has heart. That tells you they do not just fold when things get tough. They fought their way back and put themselves right in a position to steal this game on the road. But what happened in the fourth quarter is exactly what James Worthy was talking about when he went on air and started ripping into this team. 8 turnovers in the fourth quarter alone. 8! The Lakers had only 5 turnovers in the first 3 quarters combined. 5 the entire first 3 quarters, and then 8 in just 1 quarter when the game was on the line, when the game was being decided, when every possession was worth its weight in gold. That is where the Lakers completely fell apart, and that is what James Worthy could not get over. He said plainly and clearly that those 8 turnovers were 8 attempts the Lakers never got. 8 possessions that could have helped them cut into the deficit, could have helped them get. He did not just say it was a tough night and move on. He expressed real frustration about the execution down the stretch. He talked about how the Lakers could not get the shots they normally knock down. He talked about how the execution in the fourth quarter was just not where it needed to be for a team that had been playing as well as they had been playing. And when a Hall of Famer like James Worthy, a man who won 3 championships as a Laker, sits down and tells you your execution was not good enough, you listen, because he knows exactly what it takes to win on the road in the NBA. The criticism was not just about turnovers either. Worthy also pointed to the last possession of the game as a moment that summed up how the night went for Los Angeles. The final play was disrupted right from the beginning. It never got to where it was supposed to go. The Lakers were trying to get Luka Dončić going over the top, but somebody got a tip on the pass, and it just did not arrive where it was supposed to. Luka ended up with a tough, heavily contested step-back attempt at the end of the game, and it did not go in. Worthy gave Luka credit for trying, for fighting, for taking the shot under pressure, but he also made it clear that the play was broken from the moment it started, and that better execution would have given Luka a cleaner look at the basket. Now let's talk about the man who absolutely destroyed the Lakers on this particular night, because this story cannot be told without giving full credit to someone who most of the basketball world had not been paying attention to before this game. His name is Jalen Jenkins, and if you do not know who Jalen Jenkins is, let this night be your introduction. Jenkins was a two-way contract player for the Detroit Pistons. Two-way. That means he was not even a guaranteed roster player at the start of his NBA journey with this team. He was on the fringe. He was one of those guys fighting every single day just to keep his spot on the team, just to prove that he belonged at this level. And then Cade Cunningham went down with an injury and was ruled out indefinitely, and Jenkins got the call to step up. On this particular night against the Los Angeles Lakers, Jalen Jenkins delivered the performance of his life. 30 points, 11 of 18 shooting from the field, 4 of 5 from behind the three-point line, 8 assists, and the most important numbers of all, 4 for 4 from the free throw line in the final moments when the game was being decided. He scored Detroit's last 6 points of the game. 6 points when the pressure was at its absolute highest, when the crowd was going crazy, when the Lakers were trying everything they could to stop him, and he did not flinch. He did not miss. He hit every single shot he took when it mattered most. James Worthy and Danny Green both talked about just how hard Jenkins was to stop on this night. They pointed out one specific thing that the Lakers simply could not solve. They could not force Jenkins to go left. The man was getting to his right hand over and over again, and the Lakers had no answer for it. When he got going downhill toward the right side of the basket, he was getting layups over good defense. He was pulling up for mid-range jumpers that were falling. He had a deep corner three that went in clean. He had a backdoor dunk that showed he was not just a shooter, but a real player who could hurt you in multiple ways. His 8 assists showed that he was not just scoring for himself either. He was running the offense, making decisions, finding open teammates, and doing everything that Cade Cunningham.
And that team, in their own building, managed to outplay the Lakers in key moments and snap a 9-game winning streak. That is the part that stings. That is the part that makes Worthy's words carry real weight. When you have LeBron James and Luka Dončić on your team, and you lose to a team without its superstar because of 8 fourth-quarter turnovers and broken plays down the stretch, you have to look in the mirror. Let's talk about Luka Dončić's night specifically, because even in a loss, what Luka is doing right now statistically is absolutely remarkable. He scored 32 points in this game. 32 points on a night where he shot just 3 for 13 from three-point range. That means on an off-shooting night, on a night where his three ball was not falling, he still poured in 32 points. He did not have his best shooting performance, but he was still out there fighting, still out there trying, still out there doing whatever he could to give his team a chance to win. And here is the number that really puts it all in perspective. This was Luka Dončić's 10th straight game with 30 or more points. 10 games in a row with at least 30. Do you understand how rare that is? To put it in context, that is the longest streak of 30-plus point games in Lakers history. He now shares that list with some of the greatest players to ever put on a Lakers uniform, names that people talk about with deep respect in the basketball world. And Luka is doing this in his very first season with the organization. His very first season. He is already making history in a purple and gold jersey, and he just got there. Worthy pointed out that even though Luka had a tough shooting night from 3, that is just a bad night. because over the last 13 games, Luka has been shooting 42% from three-point range. When you are shooting 42% from deep, bad nights are going to happen. 3 for 13 is an outlier. It is not who Luka Dončić is right now. It is not what this stretch of basketball has been about. The man had games of 60 and 40 points during this recent run. He has been carrying this team on his back while also making his teammates better. One bad shooting night does not erase any of that. He also had a great pass attempt near the end of the game. He was trying to get Luke Kennard open in the corner for a three that could have changed everything. The pass was right, the idea was right, but it just came up short. These are the moments that hurt after a loss. You look back and you see the plays that were almost there, the possessions that almost worked, and it makes the loss sting even more. Worthy acknowledged that. He said he would take Luka with that 15-foot jumper at the end of the game all night long, because more often than not, Luka is going to make that shot. Tonight, he did not. That happens in basketball. Now let's talk about LeBron James, because his night was one that people are going to discuss for a different reason. LeBron finished the game just one rebound away from a triple-double. He was right there. He came close to adding another triple-double to his already legendary statistical resume, but he fell just short. And in a game where the Lakers needed big moments from their biggest players, LeBron's night will be seen by some as one where he could have done more down the stretch. When James Worthy talks about execution and about the plays that needed to be made when it mattered most, that conversation includes everyone on the floor, including LeBron. To be fair, the Lakers were also playing without some of their players. Marcus and Rui were both out for this game. That matters. When you are missing pieces of your roster, the players who are available have to do more, and the margin for error gets smaller. Detroit was also without Cade Cunningham, so both teams were dealing with absences. But the difference was that Detroit found their next man up in Jenkins, and the Lakers could not quite find that same kind of replacement production when they needed it most in the fourth quarter. Austin Reaves had a good night personally. He finished with 24 points and had a massive third quarter where he scored 14 points almost by himself and helped bring the Lakers all the way back from that 13-point deficit. Reaves has become such a key piece of this Lakers team. Night after night, he shows up, he competes, he makes big shots. They came in, they played physical, they scored when they needed to. But even with the bigs playing well, even with Reaves having a strong night, even with Luka pouring in 32 points, the Lakers still lost because of what happened in the fourth quarter. And that brings us back to the core of what James Worthy was saying. The 8 turnovers in the fourth quarter are not just a footnote. They are the story of why this game ended the way it did. Worthy said it clearly. If you can get even half of those possessions back, if you convert on just 4 of those 8 chances, you change the entire outcome of the game. You get cleaner looks, you keep the pressure on Detroit, you make Jenkins and the Pistons defend more possessions. You take the crowd out of it. Instead, those turnovers gave Detroit exactly what they needed: easy transition opportunities, free throw attempts, and the kind of momentum that is almost impossible to stop once it gets going. The word shame in this conversation came from a real place of frustration. Worthy was not trying to pile on his team after a tough road game. He was holding them to a standard, the standard that a 9-game winning streak demands. When you have been playing that well, when you have built that kind of momentum, and then you go out in a must-win type of atmosphere and give the ball away 8 times in the final quarter, that is a shame. That word means something coming from someone who has been around this franchise as long as Worthy has. He is not someone who throws words around carelessly. When he says shame, he means it, and every Lakers fan watching that broadcast felt exactly what he was feeling. Let's take a step back now and look at the bigger picture, because this loss, as painful as it is, does not erase everything the Lakers have done over the last month. They won 9 games in a row. They won 12 of their last 13. They were sitting third in the Western Conference. They had completely changed the conversation around this team, going from a group that was searching for its identity to a team that had clearly found it. Worthy himself said that during the winning streak, this team found something they had been looking for all year. They found their identity as a collective defensive team that moves the ball well on offense and plays together. That does not disappear because of one loss in Detroit. The road trip they have been on is also worth putting in context. Going into the last game on this road trip in Indiana, the Lakers were 4-1. 4 wins and 1 loss on a 6-game road trip. The last time the Lakers went 5-1 on a road trip was somewhere around 17 or 18 years ago. That is a long time. That is how rare that kind of road success is for any team in the NBA. For this Lakers team to be in a position to accomplish that, even after losing in Detroit, is something worth recognizing. They still have one more game on this road trip, and they can still end it on a positive note. The upcoming schedule also gives the Lakers reasons to be hopeful. After the road trip wraps up, they come back home. They have games against the Nets and the Wizards waiting for them. Those are games where the Lakers should be able to bounce back and start a new winning streak. The competitive part of their schedule is not going away, but they do have opportunities to regroup, refocus, and come back to what made them so hard to beat over the last few weeks. One more thing worth talking about. The Pacers snapped their 16-game losing streak on the same night the Lakers lost to Detroit. They beat Orlando. So when the Lakers go to Indianapolis for their last road game of the season, they're going to be playing a Pacers team that finally got a win after 16 straight losses. That team is going to be playing with a lot of energy and a lot of relief. It is not going to be an easy game just because the Pacers have been struggling. Worthy noted this is something the Lakers need to be aware of. You do not want to give a team the chance to feed off that energy, especially when you are coming off a loss yourself. The tiebreaker situation is also really important for the Lakers right now. They have secured 3 tiebreakers during this run of good basketball. Those tiebreakers could end up being the difference between 3rd place and 5th place in the Western Conference standings as the season winds down. Home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs is something you absolutely want. It gives your team a massive edge, it keeps you in front of your own crowd for at least 2 games, and it puts the pressure on the visiting team right from game 1. The Lakers are still in great shape to hold on to 3rd place, but Worthy made it clear, this is not the time to relax. There are still 10 games left and the job is not finished. Let's come back to Luka Dončić one more time because the milestone he hit in this game deserves its own moment. He crossed 2,000 total points on the season in
2,000 points. He joins a very short list of players who have done that as a Laker, a list that starts with Kobe Bryant, who reached 2,000 points in a season 8 times during his career. Think about that. Luka is in his first season with the Lakers, and he is already on that list. He is already part of that conversation, and this is just the beginning. If Luka continues on this trajectory, continues to develop his chemistry with LeBron and Reaves, continues to make the players around him better while also scoring at this rate, the ceiling for what this team can do is very high. The three-point shooting has been particularly impressive over this stretch. Going 3 for 13 in this game was genuinely an off night for him, because over the last 13 games, he has been shooting 42% from 3. That is elite three-point shooting by any standard in the modern NBA. That is the kind of shooting that makes defenses have to guard you far out on the floor, which opens up driving lanes for LeBron, cutting lanes for Reaves, and post opportunities for the big men. When Luka is shooting at that rate, everything works better for this Lakers team. But even on nights when the 3-ball is not falling, Luka finds other ways to hurt you. He gets to the free throw line. He makes the right pass. He pulls up for mid-range jumpers. He makes the entire defense work for every possession. The 32 points he scored in Detroit without his 3-ball going is proof of that. He had 14 points in the 3rd quarter alone as part of the comeback attempt. He was fighting the whole night. He never stopped competing. That is the sign of a player who is truly elite. Not just because of what he does when everything is going well, but because of how he still finds ways to produce when things are not going his way. So where does this leave the Los Angeles Lakers? It leaves them in a good place overall, but with real things to fix before the playoffs begin. The 4th quarter execution has to be cleaner. 8 turnovers in a single quarter against a playoff-caliber team will not work when the stakes are even higher in the postseason. The ball movement that has been so good during this winning streak needs to be consistent all the way to the final buzzer, not just for 3 quarters and then disappear when things get tight. The closing ability, the ability to hold a lead or take control of a close game in the final minutes, that is something this team needs to sharpen before the playoffs arrive. James Worthy calling the team out is not a sign that things are falling apart. It is actually a sign of respect. It is Worthy holding a team that he believes in to a higher standard because he knows what they are capable of. He saw this team win 9 in a row. He saw them claw back from 13 down in Detroit. He knows what they can do when they are locked in and playing their best basketball. That is exactly why the 8 fourth-quarter turnovers frustrated him so much. Not because this team is bad, but because this team is good enough to not do that. The Detroit Pistons deserve every bit of credit for what they did tonight. They came in as the #1 team in the Eastern Conference for a reason. They play with a system. They play with discipline. They play Detroit basketball. Grinding, gritty, physical, forcing turnovers and playing at a pace that makes it uncomfortable for high-powered offenses. And they did all of that without Cade Cunningham because Jalen Jenkins was ready when his name was called. That is what good organizations do. They build depth. They develop players. They make sure that when the star goes down, the next man is not just a body, but a real contributor. Jenkins proved that beyond any doubt tonight. As this Lakers season heads into its final stretch with 10 games remaining, the message from James Worthy is simple and direct. The team found its identity. They know who they are. They know how to play. Now they need to finish the job. They need to take care of business in Indiana, come back home, win those games against the Nets and the Wizards, hold on to third place, keep those tiebreakers, and make sure that when the playoffs start, they are exactly where they need to be. The 9-game winning streak is over. That is just basketball. But the work that went into building that streak, the identity they discovered, the way they play together on both ends of the floor, all of that is